Hello and welcome to Crafting with the Desmond-Fish Public Library. My name is Beth and I work at the circulation desk and I'm also the Teen Services Librarian. And today I'm going to show you how to make a wax paper sun catcher, something that'll end up looking a little bit like this. This one I made with maple keys and I have myself tilted towards the window so you can get a little bit of an idea of what it is like against the window. These are really fun to make, really simple, and very versatile in what you can put in them. So today what you're going to need is wax paper. First off, just a roll of wax paper, and then you are going to need some scissors, some cardstock. I'm using Bristol board weight cardstock, white thread, a needle, which I have already threaded because it makes it harder to lose, pencil, glue stick, X-Acto knife, ruler, and something to put in your sun catcher. I really like, especially this time of year, to do whatever is currently blooming in nature in my yard is nice, which is why I had so many maple keys. I did my previous one out of maple keys. I'm going to do another one with a buttercup. This project works best if whatever you put in it is completely flat. So I'm going to show you how I flattened my buttercup and how I made my maple keys flat as well. So if you do not have a flower press, you do not need one. All you need is a big heavy book. I'm using The Joy of Cooking. You go outside and pick some flowers or some leaves or something else. Put them on a paper towel. Either fold it, or if you don't have enough space, put another paper towel on top. Leave a little bit of room so they're not quite touching each other. And I am, as I put this down, sort of guiding them flat the way I want them. And now that I have my paper towel sandwich with my flowers and leaf on the inside, I'm just going to tuck it in the bottom of the book. Boom, close it, and leave it flat like this for a week. A week goes by, you open it back up, and you have something like this. The flower has dried out and is now flat. So I'm going to use this today. The other thing that I did, because I have so many maple keys in my backyard, and I think they're really neat looking, but they've got this big seed, which is too bumpy, is I very carefully just cut them off. I took my X-Acto knife. They are brittle, so go slowly. Luckily, they're plentiful, so if you mess a few up, just go grab some more. And starting at the end towards the seed, I just very carefully cut away the seed part, leaving myself a little bit of a curve or such. And you can see in this one, I did that to all of these, which means that they are flat enough to get pressed between the wax paper. So once you have whatever it is that you want to press between your wax paper, it can be pressed flowers, it can be seed pods or anything. You can also, it can be a picture you've made, it can be, my mother and I used to do snowflakes in the winter, press between wax paper this way. The next thing you're going to do is make your wax paper sandwich. Now I've decided that I want my finished one to be 4x5. So I have my 4x5 card, and that's going to end up being the frame around the outside here. And I like having a 1/2 inch frame. So I'm also going to make my wax paper just a little bit under 4 by 5 so that it sits nicely in here. I'm going to cut using scissors because I don't want the serrated edge. It doesn't look as nice. But you don't have to worry too much about your edges because we can always trim them and the edges get hidden at the end inside the frame. So I've got my pencil. First, since I have this sort of raggedy edge, I'm going to make myself a nice straight edge. Drawing with my pencil. The pencil you can't see, I'm using a mechanical pencil because it really just marks a line in the wax that I can see more than it actually leaves a pencil line. So I've decided I'm also going to make this 4 by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I cut here, I can double it over. This is a really nice thing to do in the fall with leaves that have fallen off maple trees or other things like that. It's a really fun thing to do with kids because you can combine going on a nature walk and finding interesting things, and then a week later you can take those things and make a craft out of it. This is something that a child would need help with and supervision because the step we do after this involves a hot iron. Because what we are going to do is make a sandwich of wax paper and our object, and then we're going to melt the wax paper together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the key to making this work is getting the waxy sides of the paper together. And now it can be really hard to tell what side is the side with the wax on it. They really look identical. The best way to do this is some trial and error. I have found for Reynolds brand cut-right wax paper, if you have 2 curves, since it's on a roll, when it comes off it's curved, you want to put the curves facing each other like that. And what I did to find this out is I cut a bunch of small little pieces, which I have right here, and just tried. You know, first I did the curves towards each other, I did the curves going the same way, and I did the curves going away from each other. And then I went and saw which one attached best. And it's really hard here with the camera to see the difference between them. But this one is really become, and it feels like one piece of paper. Where this one has a lot of air bubbles still left in it, and it sort of feels like 2 pieces of paper, and it peels apart super easy because it hasn't been well connected. So it might take a bit of trial and error, so I recommend using a few bits of small scraps and just test, label them and test them first. Because it makes a big difference having the correct sides touching each other. So now I've got my wax paper cut, I have my pressed flour, I'm going to set up my ironing board. And by ironing board, since I don't have one, I mean a thick towel on my table. So I'm going to set that up and I'll be right back. Okay, here we go. Here's my little setup with my beautiful view of my kitchen. I have got an old towel doubled over to protect my table from the heat. I have got another old towel that I'm going to put on top to protect my iron from the wax. I have my iron on. I have set it to no steam because we don't want to get this wet. And I have mine set to about medium, or on mine it's called wool. I've set it to wool. There's no place that says wax paper, but wool I found works well. Now I've gotten at my 2 sheets. If I set them down, I can see the way they curl from being on the roll, and I want my curls away from each other. I've got my flour. I'm going to position it where I think it looks nice. I'm going to put my other one on top. I'm going to line them up. And now I'm going to put this towel down over it. I'm keeping my hand down so that this doesn't sort of blow around and stays where I want it. While I lay down my towel on top of it. I want my towel to be flat. And I can, if I touch it a little, I can sort of hear it so I can know where it is. I can also, if I want, peek back like that. Once my iron is hot, I'm going to set it down on my towel, and I'm going to move it a little bit. So I'm going to let it sit, I'm going to lift it, I'm going to move it, because I do not want to burn the towel. One of the reasons why it's nice to use an old ratty towel like this one with strings coming off and everything is if I do burn it, I'm not going to be mad at myself. And now I am just going to iron the towel. I'm going to move it around because I don't want to set anything on fire. I'm going to do only the area that's directly above my wax paper sandwich. Now I'm going to take a peek and see. Make sure my iron's down and steady. If I take a peek under, I can see that it is most of the way melted, but you can see how this corner isn't quite together. So I'm going to give some more work to this corner. Beautiful. And now I can see it's all melted to each other and well connected. So I'm going to show you how to make the frame. Pause this a moment. Okay, now I'll show you how to make the frame for it. So first off, I want my frame to be a little bit bigger than my wax paper sandwich, because the glue doesn't stick very well to the wax paper. What I'm really going to be doing is gluing the paper to the paper, and it's going to hold the wax paper in place. So I am going to trim this about 1/4 inch on either side, because right now it's about the exact same size. So I have a ruler here on my mat, which makes things really easy. And I'm just going to mark off a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to trim it. I'm going to look at it again. So now I can see that there is space on the card all the way around where the wax paper ends. My next step is to make the window in this. So I want my frame, my border, to be a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to mark that on here. Just going to draw some light lines. So now I have a box drawn that is a 1/2 inch from all the sides. I'm going to take my cutting blade, my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to follow those lines. I'm using the ruler to help guide. That way I can push the X-Acto knife a little bit against the ruler and pull towards me, and that way I do a nice straight line. And I'm going to press down firmly to help cut through. And I'm going to do it twice to make sure it goes all of the way through. I find it easiest to draw towards myself instead of across, so I'm just going to turn my paper. And then the inside just comes right out. Now for the other one, I don't need to measure because I can just align them up on top of each other and trace. And there I have the exact same lines. And while I am drawing the knife towards myself, I am also making sure that my thumb is not in the way, that it's on the ruler itself. And I'm pushing more down and pulling it towards me so that if it slips, I'm not pulling it directly towards myself like that. now have my frame pieces. I'm going to put my blade away. Now, what I do is I do the two pencil sides towards each other. So pencil and the trace pencil like that. That way the pencil lines don't show on my finished sun catcher. I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to very liberally apply glue all over the pencil side of one of the frames. I'm now going to move it over a little so that any glue I got on my board doesn't get in the middle of this. And I'm going to line this up. Stick it down. Now I'm going to glue the pencil side of this one. And line it up on top. And press down on it. Paying special attention to press down hard on the edges because I want the paper to glue to each other. Because that is what will really dry and hold a good bond and will hold the wax paper in place. So now I have my flower in my wax paper stained glass. The last thing I'm going to do is make a hanger for it. So since it is 4 inches across, I know that at 2 inches is the middle, and I'm going to approximate the middle of the quarter, of the ½ inch or quarter inch in, and I'm just going to put a tiny dot. I don't really want to, I'm not sure you can even see the dot, it's so small. I don't want to leave a mark, I just want to know where I'm stabbing with my needle. Taking my needle, I already have it threaded. I'm lining the needle up with the dot. And I'm punching through. Pulling my needle through, and then making sure I don't pull all of my thread through. I'm unthreading my needle, and that way my thread is going through my hole. And depending on where you are hanging it, if you have a wooden window frame and you have a thumbtack you don't mind putting in it, you might be hanging it further down. I am just hanging it from the knobs that lock my window, so I'm not hanging it from very far. I'm just going to put a knot in here. And then I'm going to trim the ends of my thread above my knot. And there I have it. So it's really pretty straightforward. It's finding something you find nice and decorative, putting it between 2 pieces of wax paper, putting the wax paper between 2 towels, ironing it until the wax melts together, cutting a frame from cardstock, poking a hole to hang it, and you have yourselves some sun catchers. I hope you enjoy making your own, and I hope you get creative with what you put in them. and I will see you next week for another video. Goodbye.